Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this very special edition of Inspirate, where we're talking about happy families and how important are happy families in this world we live in today, with everything that's happening around us, all the anxiety that people are going through, all the pain we are experiencing, such tumultuous times. And the fabric of community, of society, of an ummah starts with a happy home. And who more so than our congenial host and guest, Uncle Idris, who is so active in the community dealing with homes and what's happening in their homes. Today specifically, we want to speak about something that I must admit, I am a little bit of a skeptic, but Uncle Idris, known as the Love Doctor, will be able to share a lot of insight. This concept of love, how important is love in a home? Is there such a thing, Uncle Idris?
You know what, Yusuf, it is to me one of the most fundamental things in marriage. In fact, our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet of love. And there are so many incidents I can cite, and I want to cite a few incidents. There's a beautiful example when our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I think when he kissed his grandchild, a Bedouin said to him, "O Prophet of Allah, I have 10 children, I have not kissed any one of them." And there are two variations to this. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said words to this effect: "It is not my fault if Allah remove mercy from your heart." And the other response is, "If you are not merciful, Allah will not show you mercy." And our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he was giving a talk, when his grandchild came there, he walked down to the grandchild. And what did he do? He picked the child up. When he was eating his salah, his grandchild was on his back, and he stayed long for sujood. Why? For fear he would not want to hurt the grandchild. And they had an example of one little young boy rather, who lost a bird, who passed away. He showed compassion. We got to show compassion. And the home itself must be a place of love, a place in which there is an expression of that love, a place in which I'm not saying we must be overly indulgent. I'm not saying that, we ignore when our children do wrong things, but we must celebrate each other. We must say, "I'm so happy to see you." In fact, all children, I say, need the 6 A's. They need affection, they need attention, they need appreciation, they need affirmation, they need acknowledgement, and they also need what I call positive attributes. Because studies have shown that 85% of our interaction with the kids is either, "No, you can't do it," "You are useless," "You are stupid." Now that talk leads to a child's negative self-talk. The child will grow up believing that. And so it's a recipe for disaster. When he does badly, he says, "Daddy and Mommy told me that." They're expecting that from me. So I think it's very, very important, because they say children learn through their eyes. They watch you. Children mimic adult behavior. They say an apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And now to just share one incident, if I could. There are many, but we don't have the time. This one incident was about a teacher. And this teacher was very nervous about his first day at school. And he thought, you know what? I don't think the pupils will listen to me. And anyway, he went to the class. The boys were very inattentive and being boys, naughty boys, "You're a naughty boy." And it reminds me of when I was at school, right? And but there was one girl who had the outer trappings of beauty, an incredibly bright person. She was attentive. He said, "Never mind, I would teach for her." which he did. But 3 weeks into the second semester, she hadn't come back to school. And then he asked the registrar, where is this girl? He said, haven't you heard? She committed suicide. Then he said, I will not rest until I find out why she did what she did. And he says, why did I not get to know her better? And our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam knew each of the Sahaba. He knew them. So his relationship with each one was unique. It was powerful. Each one felt that they were the most important person in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's life. Anyway, he goes to the house, he meets the mother and father. They were loving parents, except they never hugged the child or never expressed the child. No matter if you tell me, I love my kids, I love them, and I know you got beautiful kids, I love my children. If they do not experience that love, that means you do not love them, no matter how much of love you have in the heart. It has to be demonstrated, it must be expressed, it must be articulated, right? So anyway, he decided to teach his pupils how to show love. Once a week, I think it was on a Wednesday afternoon. And one father recounts the story. He says, I was ensconced in my chair, and my son came to me, and he said to me, Daddy, Daddy, would you please stand up? And I was taken aback by his request. I stood up. My son kissed me on both my cheeks, and he told me, Daddy, I love you. I began to cry. And then I asked my son, why are you telling me this now? And he said, must I tell you when you are dead? Therefore, it's better to give a rose than to leave a wreath. You see, there are two emotions, you see, Yusuf. When your loved ones pass away, your children, whatever, the tears, there is one of sadness because you love them and they love you. You feel a sense of loss. But the tears that are much more, you know, in terms of the expression and whatnot, the tears of regret. And you say, I should have told my wife, my husband, I love them. I should have hugged them. This is what Islam is all about, you know. When our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to walk into his home, the first thing he did was he used the miswak. You understand? And so this is very, very important.
I wanted to say something. I mean, you brought something very important. Yet, I think sometimes culturally, right, that again, we talk about this patriarchal society, and you grow up in homes where you don't see affection. There might be affection behind closed doors between the parents, but outwardly it may be frowned upon. And then you grow up in that home and you don't have this experience of touch and feel and so on. And so it makes you a cold person, right? And then it's difficult, and you see this in a lot of homes. You see it's difficult for a man then. You know, I've seen you at certain seminars when you're talking and you're asking the males there to go home that night and go and be affectionate. And then you can see people are uncomfortable, right? This is also something that I think we need to break this negative belief. I mean, because we have this example, as you said, through our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You know, Yusuf, it has to be done now. Otherwise, you are going to regret it. I met someone at doing Umrah, and his first wife passed away. So he was there with his second wife, and he said, Idris, I know the programs that you do. He said, one of my biggest regret is I never told my first wife how much I love them. And when you hug your wife in front of the kids, when you hugged her, what are you doing? You're promoting the institution of marriage. What are you doing? You're showing them how to express it. And when you hug them, it makes such a big difference. You know, the story I shared with you, that was a tipping point for me in terms of my relationship with my mom and dad. So ever since that, and I came across that particular traumatic incident in 1979. If If I'm in a hall, someone tells me my dad is sitting in the front row, I would walk up to him and give him a hug. And I remember my mother, she was very expressive. When I was at university, I used to come home. When she saw me, she used to cry. When I should leave, she used to cry. So one day, she did not cry. I said, Mommy, you forgot to cry. She cried immediately. And we miss that. We miss that because, especially in today's times, what we want more than anything else is our children to experience that love. It is precisely because they're not experiencing it. So they are being groomed and seduced by people from the outside who have no interest in them. And what happens, therefore, it is quite a frightening phenomena to see how many of our children are escaping from the clutches of the home, thinking that other person will give them joy.
Yeah, you know, you bring up something very dear to my heart just before we close, before we go to the ad break, and that is I learned through my son, who we found out he had a hearing impairment, and he brought such a lot of love into the house, and he had just naturally this affection. So I learned to become very affectionate with my son. You know, it was touch and feel. He broke a paradigm of mine through years because it was this, like I said, this lineage of a man is like not really so affectionate. You show love in maybe through you know, speaking and so on, but not touchy and feely. And he taught me this, which brought a whole different dynamic, you know, to the home. So this is most interesting, most intriguing again from our love doctor, Uncle Idris. Immediately after the break, we'll get into maybe why is there not enough love shown in our homes.